For the first time, an American admits to helping foreigners funnel money to President Trump's inauguration. Longtime lobbyist Samuel Patton in court pleading guilty today to failing to register as a foreign agent and revealing that he helped a Russian and a Ukrainian illegally purchase tickets to the January 2017 swearing-in. Patton, who has ties to a Russian associate of President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, also agreed to cooperate with Robert Mueller. But today, the president's attorney called the indictment irrelevant.
What does this have to do with President Trump? Not a single thing. Has nothing to do with collusion. Some guy who donated to the inauguration. My goodness, there are about 500,000 people that donated to President Trump.
Well, Patton joins a growing list of people from Trump's orbit that have reached a deal with prosecutors. These are real investigations resulting in real charges. Yet, Trump's legal team is working overtime to try to discredit Robert Mueller's investigation. CNN learning tonight that Rudy Giuliani is now crafting a report which will attempt to rebut Mueller's potential findings, an investigation that the president already calls illegal, as well as this.
Look, I say it again. That whole situation is a rigged witch hunt. It's a totally rigged deal.
Democrat-inspired witch hunt.
This is a witch hunt, and it's a disgrace.
But those repeated attacks and threats by this president do not appear to be working with most Americans. According to a new Washington Post ABC News poll, 63% of Americans now support Mueller's investigation. Just 29%, about 2-to-1 ratio there, oppose the probe. Evan Perez is out front live from Washington tonight. Evan, what more are we learning about this plea deal from Patton, what he pled guilty to, but also his cooperation?
That's right, Jim. He is actually, as part of his plea agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Washington, he's agreeing to cooperate with prosecutors. And so that includes not only any investigation that may still be ongoing here at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, but also potentially anything that Robert Mueller's office, the special counsel Robert Mueller, is still working on. And keep in mind, this was a case that began with Mueller and was referred over to the U.S. Attorney's Office. What Samuel Patton pleaded guilty to today was simply that he failed to register as a foreign agent. But really what the importance of this case is that this is the first time we're seeing that someone is admitting to helping Russians and Ukrainians essentially funnel money into the Trump inauguration. We know from our previous reporting, Jim, that prosecutors and the FBI have talked to Russian oligarchs when they entered the United States. They questioned them about any donations they made to the Trump campaign, any donations they made to the inauguration. But this is the first time we're seeing this in a court document, in a guilty plea that Samuel Patton agreed to today.
Just a quick clarification here. Is a donation to the inauguration, is that the equivalent of a donation to a campaign from a foreigner?
It is illegal for a foreigner to donate to the inauguration, and that is what he admitted to doing today.
Giuliani, the president's lawyer, of course, he called the Patton plea an irrelevant indictment. And I imagine for folks at home, it's hard to follow these events because it comes out in dribs and drabs. They're not necessarily names or even crimes that people at home are aware of. But this does get to foreign money coming into the Trump inauguration, which is the equivalent of a campaign contribution from abroad.
Well, it absolutely does, and it also fills out a little bit, although we certainly don't have the whole picture, but it fills out the picture of people around President Trump, and then candidate Trump, and the Trump campaign, or that was President-elect Trump at the time of his inauguration, obviously, that they had these connections, these deep connections to Russian oligarchs, to prominent Russians. One of the people whom Patton had a very close connection to was a Russian-American lobbyist who was at the Trump Tower meeting. You start to see some of these ties becoming more apparent, and while we can't know what the connections may be, it certainly does raise a lot more questions, and it shows that the Mueller probe is going in a lot of different directions, and again, how much he and his investigators know that the president and his team may not be aware that they know.
And we're getting to the point, Frank, where you have half a dozen folks who are cooperating with this investigation and folks who were involved. I mean, from very close individuals, Rick Gates, who was, of course, a deputy campaign chairman, to someone like Patton, who was at least involved, it seemed, in some money moving back and forth. You've covered this administration for some time. How worried is the president and are his advisors about that cooperation? Because, of course, they don't know what kind of goods they're given on him. Yeah.
I think they're very worried, and I think the answer is stuff we saw earlier in this segment. I mean, the way Donald Trump is speaking at the microphone, his claims are getting ratcheted up. We've gone from witch hunt to rigged witch hunt. You know, we've gone to a conspiracy between the Justice Department and the media. The fact that Giuliani and his folks are preparing this. I mean, all of these are signs of how worried to the point of panic they are, and they should be, because the news today, I think, is that Robert Mueller's investigation, and every time there's new development, we see this, is as thorough as they come and is reaching in as many directions. And if there is something there to be found, it's going to be found. And that's what has really settled into this White House, and that's what they're reacting to.
If there's anybody who's tuning out all the noise, it's Robert Mueller. It's just the way he does business.